Hello everyone, this is 8.3 Consumer Loans. We're going to talk about a type of loan called an add-on loan, and then we're going to talk about credit cards in two different ways. Credit card companies can charge you or calculate the interest that they charge you. So we'll start with add-on loans, which is basically just a simple interest loan. I think the term add-on comes because once you have the terms of the loan, you can essentially calculate the interest ahead of time, add it onto the principal, which is the amount that you borrowed, and you can know just right off the bat how much you're going to end up owing overall. And then if you want your monthly payment, you just take that and you divide by the number of months. So we have what's called the add-on interest method, which is just a method of creating monthly payments, or a type of loan you can get essentially. And this is a little formula that is pretty useful. It just says the monthly payment equals P plus I over N. P is obviously the amount that you borrowed. I is all of the interest that you're going to end up accruing. So notice up here, I just equals PRT. You can see that up here. All right, so this is just P plus PRT, right? Which is basically the future interest, or sorry, the future value of simple interest. And on so the top will represent everything you'll end up owing, and the bottom N is just going to be the number of monthly payments. So basically, you take everything you're going to end up owing divided by the number of months that you're going to pay it off. That gives you your monthly payment. It's very straightforward. Alright, so we're going to use this idea and try to tackle this problem on page 405, number 13. It says Ben's buying a new boat for $11,000. The dealer is charging him an annual interest rate of 9.2% and is using the add-on method to compute his monthly payments. Pretty much when you use this formula, somewhere in there it'll say add-on method or add-on loan, add-on something. So this is going to be broken up into three parts. Part A says if Ben pays off the boat in 48 months, what are his monthly payments? So we're just going to use that formula essentially, the P plus I over N. Well, P is the amount of the loan. Oops, I usually do this in blue. Let's do it in blue now. P is how much he's borrowing. The principal, that's 11,000. Plus I, well, I is just PRT, so it's going to be 11,000 again, times R, which 9.2% will be 0.092, times T. Now here's the catch. Remember, your units have to match over here whenever you're doing the R and T kind of thing. So R was an annual interest rate of 0.092. That means our T has to be in years since it's annual. They tell us that Ben's going to pay off the boat in 48 months. 48 months is 4 years. So this will be times 4. Alright, so that's just P plus PRT, P plus I on top. And we're going to divide that by 48 because that's the number of months. Alright, so again, the top is just going to calculate how much they owe altogether. And we're going to divide that by the number of months to get our monthly payment. So I think if you throw this in the calculator, you should get $313.50. Right, so again, this is how much you are borrowing. This is all the interest you're going to end up paying off in those 4 years. And if you take that all together, that'll be how much you actually borrowed, how much you actually owe. And you're going to divide that by 48, which is the number of months, gives you the monthly payment. So you need to pay this much for 48 months in order to pay off the $11,000 plus all the interest that you will accrue. So that's part A, pretty straightforward. For part B, this one says if he makes a down payment of $2,000, how much will this reduce his monthly payments? Well, a down payment is just going to affect how much you borrow. So instead of P being 11,000, we're going to start by just taking our 11,000 and subtracting off the $2,000 down payment. This means P now is just going to be 9,000. And then you pretty much go back and you do the same calculation as before, except that everywhere you used a P, you're going to use a 9,000 this time. So it'll still be P plus I over N. P will be 9,000 plus I, which is 9,000 times R. None of this here is changing. And still over 48. So same idea, round the numbers this time, and as you might expect, I think this rounds here, I'm not sure. 256.50 is what I got. Alright, so as you expect, if you make a down payment, overall your monthly payment should go down, and we figured that out here. So obviously, since you're paying off less, you're only paying off $9,000 versus $11,000. Not only is your principal lower, but even the amount of interest, your PRT over there, is going to be a smaller amount of money. This right over here will be less than the interest you accrue. So less principal, less interest, less money overall. Obviously, your monthly payment goes down quite a bit, so that's good. Alright, and for part C, we want to find what should his down payment be in order to have monthly payments of $200. So it's a little bit tricky because you actually don't want to think about the down payment first. What you really want to think is what is the principal, or what is the amount of money that we need to borrow in order to have our monthly payment of $200. So once we know how low we need it, the principal to be, we can just calculate our down payment to be the rest, essentially, $11,000 minus that. Alright, so let's take our formula. The monthly payment equals P plus I, and we're going to plug in 200 for the monthly payment, because this is what we want. We want our monthly payment to be equal to, now P plus I, P is what we're solving for, so we're going to leave that P. I is PRT, so we're going to put a P, but then we know our R and our T, right? It's the same thing as before. It'll be 0.092, and T will be 4. Alright, so this is still P plus PRT, or P plus I. It's just that we're solving for P in this case. On the bottom, we have our 48 as well. And this is the equation that we're going to solve for P. Probably a good first step is to get rid of the 48 on the bottom, so we'll multiply both sides by 48. Oops, there we go. 48. So here they cancel out. On the left-hand side, we get 9,600 equals, and here we essentially have, actually I'll do this first step. I'll call this 1P, right, because there's no number in front of the P, so don't forget there's the 1 there, and then the 0.092 times 4 is going to give you 0.368 P. And I'm writing it this way just so you see that we have two P's here, right? We have 1P and 0.368 P. If you put that all together, you quite literally get 1.368 P, right? 1 plus 0.368 is just 1.368. And then if you want to solve this for P, you divide by that number. Those numbers cancel out, and we get P is about equal to, I got 7,017.54. Right, so this is the amount of money that we need to end up borrowing if we want to have a $200 down payment, $200 monthly payment. Well, the $7,000 is coming from the total price, right, which was $11,000. So basically, we have this thing that costs $11,000. If we want our down payment to be $200, we're going to have to borrow no more than $7,017.54. That means the down payment is going to be $11,000 minus the $7,017.54. Oops. Dang. Right, so the difference here is how much we're actually going to have to put down. And if you subtract this, you should get your difference, which is 3,982. I'll squeeze it in here. 3,982.46. So this is the down payment that we're actually after. Oops, ran out of room there. Alright, so this is as tricky as these problems can get, essentially. Start with your monthly payment that you want, which is the 200 in this case. But instead of solving for the down payment, you're actually solving for P, your principal, which is the amount that you're going to borrow. Once you know the amount that you need to borrow, though, you can just take the total price, which was $11,000, subtract off that amount. That'll tell you how much you need to put down. All right, so in this case, the $3,982.46 is our answer. All right, so moving on to credit cards, we have two methods here, two different ones, in order that are used to calculate the finance charge, which is basically the interest that the credit card company is going to charge you each month. So the first method is called the unpaid balance method. Now both of these methods really boil down to a simple calculation of I equals PRT, because like I said, all they're calculating is interest, which is, or finance charge, which is basically interest. Now the bad news is all the work comes down to finding the P, right, the principal. What are they actually calculating interest on? So for the unpaid balance method, it's called the unpaid balance because P stands for the unpaid balance. It's the amount of money that you still owe at the end of the month. And right here is the formula for P. It's pretty long. It says you take the last month's balance, so that's how much you already owe, plus the finance charge. Now here's the catch. I underlined this already because this is the piece that people forget the most often. The first thing you add on to last month's balance is the amount of interest that they're going to charge you at the beginning of the month, basically, for having this balance, right? So the credit card company is going to charge you some interest. You're going to have to add that on to last month's balance, then use all of this to calculate what the next month's interest payment is going to be. So this right here, this finance charge, is PRT, where P is last month's balance, R is the interest rate, and T is 1/12 because it's 1 month. And I'll show you an example of where you use that. But I underlined it because people forget this piece, so don't forget it. Alright, so other things, obviously, the things that you purchase during the month, that's going to increase your balance, so that's going to be added on. But then items that you return, like if you didn't like it and you took it back, that should be credited to your card, so we're going to subtract any returns. And obviously any payments you make is going to be subtracted from your balance, so we're going to subtract off payments. So all these values, sometimes you may not have each of them, right? Like returns, for example, there's not always returns. But each of those factors combines together to give you your P, which is your unpaid balance. And then you calculate a quick PRT, where R is the interest rate, which is pretty straightforward. And then T is 1/12, because R is usually an annual interest rate. So we're calculating the interest for 1 month. Don't forget, though, in terms of a year, since it's annual, 1 month is 1/12 of a year. So we'll do 1/12. Alright, so let's take a look at an example. Alright, so we're going to tackle on page 406, number 21. This problem says in the italics, use the unpaid balance method, so make sure you know what method you're doing for each problem. Given a bunch of stuff, yeah, let's just dive into it. So we have last month's balance. Okay, so we need to start by building our P. And P is, like we already know, is going to be a combination of some things. It's going to equal last month's balance, first of all, which is $475. Let's see, we have a payment of $225. Let's just kind of go through the list. Payments will be subtracted, so let me actually erase this. Oh, actually, sorry, I already broke my rule. Remember, the very first thing you do is calculating the finance charge. So the finance charge is a PRT. I'm going to go ahead and just build it right in here. The P is last month's balance, $475, times the R, which they say the interest rate is 18%, so that's going to be a 0.18. And this is for 1 month, so it'll be times 1/12. So that's that finance charge that I told you on the last slide was important. Don't forget to add that on like I almost did. So we have last month's balance, we have the finance charge, which is the interest from last month, and now we'll keep going. Payment of $225, so we'll do a minus $225. We bought a ski jacket for $180. That's going to be added on, $180. And returned a camera for $145. That's going to be subtracted from our balance, minus $145. Alright, so all this is going to work together to give us our finance charge. By the way, I'll go ahead and just throw the answer out there for you, but when you actually go to calculate it, this $475, this PRT right here, will be about $7.13. So that's the interest from last month that you have to add on, and that's going to work into our interest for this next month. So altogether here, if you calculate this P, you should get about $292.13. Right, and like we said, this stands for the unpaid balance at the end of this month. So we're pretty much done now. We just have to go through and calculate our finance charge for next month. So it's a PRT. Our P is going to be the $292.13. The R is the 0.18, and the T is still 1/12. Throw this into the calculator, and you should get about $4.38. So this is the finance charge, the interest that you will be charged for this month, whatever month we're looking at. So obviously it'll be charged at the beginning of next month. It's $4.38 of interest. So that's how the unpaid balance method works essentially. You just do everything you need to do to calculate the amount of money that you'll owe at the end of the month, and then you put that in as P for PRT. The average daily balance is the other method we can use to calculate the finance charge. This one's a little bit more complicated. Again, most of the work comes down to finding P. Once you have P, you're done. But P is a little complicated in this case. So P is the average daily balance essentially. So steps 1, 2, and 3 here are going to help you kind of get that get all your pieces together. Step 1 is you have to add the account balance for each day of the month. Average daily balance quite literally means find the average of the balance for every day in the month, right? So you're going to add up the balance for all, let's say there's 31 days, you would add up 31 different numbers, whatever the balance is, and then divide it by 31, and that will literally give you the average daily balance. It's a little bit complicated though, because there's 31 days, and you don't want to just sit there in the calculator and add 31 numbers, so we're going to kind of set that up with the table that will help us not make any mistakes, essentially. So step 1 is just adding it all up. Step 2 is to divide that by the number of days in the month. Again, that's how you find an average. Add them all up, divide by how many there are. So that will now be your average daily balance. Then you just have to do a quick I equals PRT, just like the last method. P will be your average daily balance. R is still your interest rate. There is a second catch here. T is going to be the number of days in the month divided by 365. Because this depends on the number of days in the month, T can sometimes be different, right? You could have 31, 30, 28 even days in the month, or I guess 29 even. But so that's it. Let's look at an example. So they'll usually set it up like this on page 406, number 29. In the italics, they tell us it's average daily balance. So again, make sure you know what method you're doing for each problem. They're also telling us the interest rate in the italics, by the way. It's 21%, so keep that in mind. So they usually set it up like this, where they give you a table, and they also tell us that our month is August, so there's 31 days, and our previous month's balance is $280. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to kind of lay out for each gap of days in the month, essentially, how many days was it and what was the balance, or maybe the other way around. What was the balance for how many days did it stay that way? So for example, our month is August, so we're going to start on August 1st. And on August 1st, the balance was $280. We know that because, let me do this the other way. We know that because it tells us that the previous month's balance was $280. So on August 1st, you're just going to have previous month's balance. Now, on our table, it tells us on August 5th, we made a payment. That means from the 1st all the way through the 4th, right, through the 4th, including the 4th, the balance was $280. And then on the 5th, it changed. If you make a payment of $75, well, making a payment is going to subtract from your balance. So instead of owing $280, you're going to owe, $205 now? All right, so you took that $280, subtract $75, you get $205. And that is going to last, on August 15th it changes, so it'll be this way all the way through the 14th. And now on the 15th it changes again. The table says on the 15th we charge $135 for hiking boots. That means we're going to take that $135 and add it to the $205, and that should give us $340. And this will last from the 15th all the way to the 20th because, again, it changes on the 21st. So on the 21st, charge $16 for gasoline. You're going to add that to the $340 that we already had to get $356. And that'll stay the same, it'll stay the same to the 23rd. And then on the 24th it changes for the last time. Charge $26 for a restaurant meal. You're going to add that on to the $356 to get a new balance of $382. And this will stay till the end of the month, which is the 31st. Alright, so this is essentially what our daily balance is for the entire month, kind of split it up into chunks. So from the 1st to the 4th it was $280, 5th to the 14th $205, etc. Be careful with these days you end on, right? Because you want to make sure that you count these accurately. I usually do it this way, where I just state the balance and from between what days is it, right? So like for example on the first one, it didn't change till the 5th, so that means all the way through the 4th, you're going to have that balance. Now we need to go through and figure out how many days there are here. The way I do that is I have this little trick called subtract and add 1. So basically, it was $280 from the 1st to the 4th. That is 4 days though. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 4 individual days. And that's important for how we calculate our total in a second. So to find that 4, obviously you could just count up 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Or, yeah, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. That's 4 days. But you can also just subtract the numbers and add 1. 4 minus 1 is 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. So either way, that's 4 days. So let's use that same idea on the next one. 14 minus 5 is 9. 9 plus 1 is 10. So this is 10 days. 20 minus 15 is 5. 5 plus 1 is 6. So we have 6 days. 23 minus 21 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. So we have 3 days. And lastly, 31 minus 24 is 7. 7 plus 1 is 8. So we get 8 days. You need to check this because, again, this is all little places you can make mistakes. If you add up all these numbers, you need to get the total number of days in the month, right? Because this should be all 31 days. So take a quick check. 4 plus 10 plus 6 plus 3 plus 8. Yes, that sums to 31. Right, so that means we pick the correct layout, essentially. Alright, so we're still working on just getting our P here, and we're almost done though. Once you have this layout, you're pretty much done. What we're going to do is, if it was $280 balance for 4 days, we can calculate the total by 4 times 280. Same thing with the next one. It was 205 for 10 days, so we can do 10 times 205. And we'll do that for each of these groups and then add them all together. That will give us the total daily balance. So it'll be 4 times 280 plus 10 times 205, etc. And I'll fit the other one down here. 8 times 382. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, that's all of them. So if you calculate this all together, you should get 9,334. A lot of work, and unfortunately we're not quite done because for this step, we're still in part 1 here. We still need to calculate the average daily balance, which just means take that number and divide it by 31. It'll be the 9,334 divided by 31. So total daily balance divided by the number of days in the month. Oops. That'll give us our average daily balance, which I got is about $301.10. That is our average daily balance. So now we're going to calculate the finance charge. And lastly here, we want to put this all together with an I equals PRT, where P is that average daily balance, 301.10. R is our annual interest rate of 0.21. And don't forget T is the number of days in the month divided by 365. And if you throw this in the calculator, you should get about 537. Right, so that is the amount of interest that the bank's going to charge you on your credit card if they use the average daily balance in this case. Don't forget that one of the main differences here is that your T, since it depends on how many days are in the month, your T is going to depend on what month there is, right? So if it's 31 days in the month, it's 31 over 365. If there's 30 days in the month, 30 over 365, etc. On the other method, the unpaid balance method, it doesn't matter what month it is, so it's always just 1/12. So it's a subtle difference, so look out for it. Alright, we're pretty much done. I just wanted to talk about a quick problem here on page 402, example 3, just because it has to do with student loans. This one says, assuming you graduate from college with $35,000 in student loans with a 24% annual simple interest rate, in order to reduce your debt as quickly as possible, beginning next month, you're going to pay $800 per month towards the loan. After your first payment, how much will you still owe on the loan? So the idea here is that you owe this big amount of money. You want to pay it off as quickly as possible, so you're going to start just dumping large monthly payments into it, which is never a terrible idea, but this is a somewhat morbid example, so hold on, be careful. Keep your shoes on. So the first thing we have to do is figure out, obviously you owe $35,000, but it says beginning next month, you're going to pay $800. That means you're already going to owe 1 month's worth, you're already going to accrue 1 month's worth of interest. So that months of interest is going to be I equals PRT. Your P is how much you owe, which is $35,000, the entire principal. Your R, this is a terrible interest rate, by the way, 0.24, 24%, quite a bit. And this is annual interest rate, so you're going to owe 1 month of interest, which will be 1/12. And if you put this all together here, this is going to give you $700 of interest that you just accrued in the first month. So what you actually owe when you actually go to make that payment is $35,700. So when you actually make your $800 payment, $700 of it is going towards the interest that you just accrued, and only $100 of it is going to touch that $35,000. So you're still going to owe $34,900, which is slightly bleak. There's no good news here really, other than try not to get in debt too much, and also try not to have terrible interest rates. The good thing about this is if you keep paying it off, towards the end it'll be the opposite. Pretty much all of your money will go to, you basically won't accrue much interest at all, and most of your money will go towards the principal. Some loans have stipulations where you can pay like a monthly payment minimum, but then you can pay extra money that'll go just towards your principal. That's always good too, because obviously this $700 came because you had such a large principal, right? You still owed $35,000, and that's how your interest was being accrued. So if you can pay that principal off early too, that always helps. So I hope this all helps. Let me know if you have any questions, and keep up the good work.